Hello and welcome to Chattin with MCEP. Today we're talking to Tilly Johnson, who's going to give us some information and give us her lowdown on creative life in Manchester. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Tilly.
Hi.
Hello, and nice to meet you, even though it's virtually.
Yeah, that's virtually me. Yeah.
Introduce yourself. Who are you, Tilly? And tell me about your art form and also,
Okay.
the role that you have.
So I'm Tilly, and I did a degree in three-dimensional design. So I was always really creative at school. The only class I could pay attention in was art. Like art and home ec were my favorite, but home ec mainly because the teacher let me take away cakes at the end of the class. Little teacher's pet there. But yeah, so I got into I was from Burnley, so I don't know if anyone knows Nelson and Cohen College, but started there and had a really that has a really great BTEC course in art and design. It covers everything. But then it was a bit confusing going to uni because the language with creative making courses can all seem a bit confusing. You don't really know exactly what you're getting into. So I went into a three-dimensional design course, which was mainly product design, but didn't actually design any products at all. I kind of for 4 years managed to scope my way around that, and did a sort of more fine art sculptural based course, which was really cool. But then finishing uni, it can feel quite daunting to go into a creative career straight away. So I was looking for other options of ways of getting into a creative sector, but maybe not necessarily making straight away, even though I still make at home and do all that jazz. But yeah, and then I found my friend sent me a link for Museum Futures traineeship, which is what I'm on now, and it's really great if anyone just enjoys being in a museum or a gallery. And I love it because you just chat, look at objects all day. And just the museum that I'm at, which is the National Football Museum, they do lots of community events, and I love getting involved with the community and stuff. I know little about football, but again, I'm just making it my own.
So with your role at the museum, I guess what does it consist of? What's the day to day with it, or what the hours that you do, for example? What do you spend your time doing with that role?
So I do 35 hours a week, but it's 80% on the job learning and 20% is the diploma, because it's an apprenticeship. And then I'll do blogs for the museum. So I've written a few blogs for the website. I've been learning how to use their collections organization page. So each museum has their own sort of collections network. I've been doing lots of meetings, which you feel you do lots of meetings, you don't really know what you do. You're just hi. And oh yeah, they've got a Google Arts and Culture exhibition page, and I never knew about Google Arts and Culture, but they have an exhibition page for every single museum in the world. You can go and look at all their objects for free. It's honestly such a good resource, and I never knew it. But I'm managing their exhibition page at the moment, and I'm just uploading loads of objects, making some cool exhibitions.
And sort of I guess my question for that is how did you get into this role? So it's a sort of apprenticeship thing with the museum, the scheme itself. What's the scheme called again, and how did you get into it?
So it's called Museum Futures traineeship, and my friend sent me it. It was from Arts Council, and they're just if anyone's coming into a place where they want to start a career in making, following things like that, Arts Council and Museums Association pages, they're really good because they have so many networks available for opportunities. So yeah, I just applied to that and went through the application process. Was really nervous because I pinned every hope I had in my body onto it, and I did that so many times before and it's not followed through, but this one thankfully came through.
Yeah, there's a lot of trial and error, isn't there, when you put yourself up for like jobs and applications and projects and stuff. It's like I suppose there is no one I know who has a project or is doing a job in the creative industry that hasn't sent out at least like like 15 others. I think that's just the sort of way it is, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I'm still new to this, so I only graduated in June, so I've only really been looking for projects and opportunities on my own for like up to a year now. And I've had like so many rejections from things that like you get really invested in. Like when you've created like a really good response to a brief, you're like, oh my God, I want to do this. Like I want this to be created. Like
Yeah.
please let me. And it does get a bit devastating, but yeah, you just need to carry on doing it. And if like you can fund to do it yourself, then maybe just like try and do it yourself.
I think that's a good. I know, and I suppose. I mean, I found that with the work I do, like I had to do a lot of. When we say trial and error, I mean like I had to do a lot of stop-start stuff where it was like you have to wait a bit and try that idea for another opportunity, or maybe like you just said, self-fund it in some way, which is easier said than done. Sometimes is a possibility as well. Like if there's something you have a passion for, like for example, Chattin. Me setting up this Chattin page initially was because I miss my friends who were creative and I have conversations with in Manchester in arts venues. And so I just set up this page that initially was a passion project, I used to call it. Like it's just something I did with the time. And I guess that's a good bit of advice, as you're saying, where sometimes if you can do it and get yourself out there, it does maybe eventually lead to some work.
Hopefully. We hope so.
I was gonna say, so far with the role that you're doing at the museum, like how has that been then? Like how has that been for you? What have you picked up and like what's it been like?
The experience itself is really cool, and like the nicest part of it so far has been meeting like I've met everyone in the museum virtually, and they've explained their job role to me, so it's just like it's been lovely just hearing what other people do, because a lot of the time you don't know what job roles there are, especially in museums. It seems like a bit of a very inclusive world, and yeah, that it seems like difficult to get into in that sense. And I was chatting to someone the other day who was explained herself as a curator, but like an activist curator, and I was like, oh, you are the coolest woman in the world. So straight off the bat, I was like, I want to do her job. And that's been really fun, like just a bit of exposure to like what you might want to be doing.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Chattin has teamed up with MCEP in the way that we're hoping to interview a variety of people that have different roles in the creative industry, that then hopefully sheds a bit of light to those people who are looking in and thinking, I want to work in that industry, but like I don't know what role I can take because I don't know what roles are really there.
Exactly, and they're all so different as well, so it is going to be a pretty like important piece of the puzzle to sort of work out which role I want to be in. And you really don't, well, I really had so little exposure to that, because I feel like it's not as obvious when it's a creative setting, when you're in a creative industry. Like, maybe it's like some people's family members might be creative, so you sort of understand a little bit more of the like inner workings of some sectors.
Tell me a bit about your art form, like the stuff that you get up to like creatively.
I do like poems, and then with like collages on them, and they're all sort of related to different emotional experiences, which my final project for uni was a sculptural project based on different emotions during grief and like the grieving process. So that was it. It's still kind of like a follow on from that project, but sort of in different mediums, because it's always like a lot harder to create a massive like one of the objects was like a yellow parachute that like holds onto the front of your body, and I can't really be doing that working a full-time job and at home. So it's a lot of Yeah, this 2D stuff, which I think it is really it is really vital to carry on doing that kind of stuff as well, just for like your mental well-being. I think people who love to create little things and like just have that kind of like energy in the mind.
Yeah.
Like even if you're not going to do anything with it, like I don't think I'm going to do anything with the stuff I make. I just love making it.
When you imagine you're sat in a school assembly or a college or a university, and there's a group of young people who are really interested in the work that you're doing, um, do you have any sort of advice or anything you'd say check out?
I'd say like your local arts centres, your local like communities who sort of run projects as well. I think it's really good just to start, like especially if you're around Manchester, then there's so many little centres like Z Arts. They're great places to start. And like at school, school, college, they are great places to start. And then like when you progress further, I think it takes quite a bit of confidence to go for a career in the creative industry. So I think, you know, don't put too much pressure on yourself. I'm not going for that yet. I'm going for a more structured role in a museum sector just because like it's a bit overwhelming to try and get into a making career straight off the bat, especially when I don't really know what it is that I want to do. And like it can, I feel like when you look at people and they're doing something, you can sort of assume that that is what they want to do and like they know what they want to do. But a lot of it is just sort of making it up as I go along and just like
I think that's
trying to find the right way to get there.
I think that's good to share as well, like to share that that's the way it is. And I think another thing that's really interesting is that for me, like you said about, you know, this role that you're doing now with the museum was something that you're learning from as well as doing, and it's something that's hopefully progressional. But I guess as well, before that, you said you did a lot of applications, you did a lot of searching. um where would you tell these people to look, these young people or people wanting to get into the arts? Where are some of the places that you'd look? Did you join groups online? Did you just Google stuff? What was your process?
Yeah, so my process for the first month was going on indeed.com because that's where I usually went to search for jobs. And then I was speaking to my friends who graduated uni and they were like, what are you using? I was like, I just can't find anything. I'm using Indeed. And they were like, what? What are you doing? So I was like, okay, tell me, tell me what I'm gonna do. And Arts Council was a really good platform, but that is more aimed at people who are looking for big, let's say like intermediate to beginner roles in jobs. I'd say it's quite difficult to come from it from a young newcomer's like perspective. Um, Twitter is a really good way of finding stuff out. Like I just follow all your local arts clubs and communities, and they'll be sharing opportunities.
But that's exactly it, isn't it? It's about looking and weighing up what those jobs are or what those roles are, what those opportunities are to be a participant in a project. But I am a massive believer in starting local, like you said, where you follow your local arts groups and your local arts and your local creatives, individuals. They share opportunities, they know people, and it's like you're sort of creating a network, aren't you, from there? But I think that's really interesting, and I think and I'm really glad about the fact that you were successful with this one with the museum after it's lots of searching, which I'm sure I really relate to. Um, but but yeah, I mean, generally, I think it's been really interesting to find out your journey from how you've got to that to the role you're doing. You know, your hobby side of being creative, which you also elaborated on. I think it's just really interesting and really good for people to hear the process that you've taken and also just where you're at, honestly, like also how sort of what's the next steps and how things work. It's been a real insight, so thanks very much for chatting to me today.
It's been absolutely lovely. It's been really nice chatting to you.